It began so quietly you didn't notice, not at first. Not when the world told you who you were supposed to be, and you agreed because agreement felt like safety. Not when the smile became a habit, not when silence became survival, not when performing became love. It didn't feel like a trap. It felt like belonging, like this is just who I am. But you weren't becoming someone. You were building a costume. You learned to tell a story. And the longer you told it, the more real it felt. I'm the shy one. I'm the ambitious one. I'm the helper, the rebel, the one who holds it all together. I'm the one who gets it done. I'm the one who's always been too much. I'm the one who was never quite enough. You didn't choose those roles. You inherited them from fear, from praise, from absence, from the desperate hope that if you could just be someone, then maybe you'd finally feel safe being anyone at all. And it worked for a while. The world rewarded your mask. It nodded when you succeeded. It applauded when you aligned with its expectations. It smiled when you said what it wanted to hear. And so you kept shape-shifting, not to deceive, but to survive. But something else was happening beneath the applause, a quiet forgetting, a drifting away from something you couldn't name. The light in your eyes started dimming, and you didn't know why. It wasn't sadness, exactly. It was ... distance, like being far from home in a place where everyone speaks your language, but no one understands your silence. You played your role well, so well, in fact, that even you began to believe it. You mistook the voice in your head for your soul. You mistook your reactions for your nature. You mistook your memories for your truth. You began to decorate the prison, painting the walls with achievement, filling the air with affirmations, lighting candles in the dark corners of your self-concept, hoping to make it holy. But nothing filled you, not really, because the ache wasn't in what you hadn't done. It was in what you were still pretending to be. You tried different identities on like clothes, hoping one would finally feel like skin, the intellectual, the artist, the spiritual one, the one who overcame, the one who never needed anyone, the one who healed. But no matter how carefully curated, each identity left something untouched, some part of you still exiled, still unheard, because you were never just one thing. You were never meant to be, but the world taught you that clarity was safety, that a strong sense of self was the goal, that to be someone was to be real. And so you built yourself from fragments and called it wholeness. But the more pieces you added, the less you recognized yourself. You began to notice the exhaustion that came not from doing too much, but from being too much managing, too much maintaining, too much defending the illusion of who you thought you had to be. There were moments, rare and wild, where something cracked. A grief you couldn't explain, a peace you couldn't trace, a longing that felt like remembering. Moments where time dropped away and you glimpsed yourself, not the character, not the mask, but the space before all roles. And then the moment would pass. You'd return to your name, your responsibilities, your practiced opinions. You'd forget again. But those glimpses mattered because they planted a seed, a holy irritation, a quiet rebellion that whispered, this isn't who you are. Not the overachiever, not the wounded child, not the seeker, the struggler, the one who always figures it out. Those aren't you. They're just strategies, rehearsed identities born from impact. And beneath them, there's only presence. There's only awareness. There's only the unnameable truth you never lost, only covered. But undoing the mask can feel like death, because the self you constructed clings to survival, even when it's suffering. It wants to remain someone, even if that someone is broken, even if that someone is lost. And so you begin to ask not just, who am I really? But the more terrifying question, what if I am not this at all? What if the me I've been trying to become doesn't exist? What if I've never actually been the one thinking these thoughts, needing this healing, chasing this clarity? And what if that isn't terrifying, but freedom? Because the prison was never built from pain. It was built from pretending. And the door has always been open. Not when you become your best self, but when you let go of needing to be a self at all. That's where the unraveling begins, not in perfecting the mask, not in healing the character, but in watching it all dissolve and discovering that nothing true is ever lost, just hidden behind the effort to become someone. You began to search, not because you were curious, but because you were tired. Tired of pretending, tired of performing, tired of trying to keep the illusion alive. You didn't know it was an illusion, yet not completely. You still believed there was a version of you out there that would finally make sense. The real you, the true self, the one buried beneath all the noise, the pain, the programming. You believed the task was to find it, recover it, earn your way back to something lost. So you began to dig. You peeled back layers like skin, sometimes gently, sometimes with force. You thought the pain was proof that you were getting closer. You thought the discomfort was a compass. You thought the ache meant something sacred was beneath. And sometimes it did. But more often than not, you were just circling the same center. You were still orbiting a self you hadn't yet questioned. You started to collect pieces that felt true. The things that lit you up, the moments that moved you, the insights that made you cry. You wrote them down. You made them part of your story. You curated a new sense of self, one that felt more whole, more conscious, more awake. But it was still a self. A newer mask, softer maybe, but still armor. You didn't know how attached you were to becoming someone better, the healed version, the wise version, the embodied, authentic, fully integrated version. You built that image like an altar, worshipped it with effort, devotion, longing. You sat in meditation trying to meet it. You worked through your shadows, hoping to reach it. You read, you journaled, you asked the hard questions. You traced trauma, rewrote beliefs, reparented your younger self. And still there was tension, still there was striving, still there was someone trying to get there, the seeker, the fixer, the one always in motion, always refining, always reaching for some final knowing. And it began to wear on you because every arrival dissolved. Every breakthrough turned into another initiation. Every aha was followed by another layer, another pattern, another wound. You told yourself this was the path, that healing was endless, that this was how awakening worked, that peeling was eternal, that depth was proof of progress. But something inside you started to rebel. A quiet rebellion, not of ego, but of truth. You began to suspect that maybe the path itself was the distraction, that maybe the seeker is the very thing keeping you from what's already here, that maybe all this self-work was just a subtler form of self-preservation, a performance in a language only the spiritual understand. You began to feel the weight of your own awakening, the pressure to always be conscious, present, kind, regulated, expansive, the fear of regressing, the fear of forgetting, the fear of not living up to your own evolution. And the irony was sharp, how you had freed yourself from one identity only to build another, this time made of incense and insight, still clinging to form, still clinging to story. You thought you were letting go, but the letting go was being managed by a part of you that still needed control, that still needed to be someone, the one who lets go well, the one who surrenders with grace, the one who forgives, the one who integrates, the one who knows what it all means. And yet something deeper was stirring, something wordless, something simple, not more understanding, not more insight, just presence, just quiet. Just the strange spaciousness of no longer needing to define yourself. You began to question everything, not in a chaotic way, but in a soft unraveling. What if the you doing all this searching doesn't exist the way you think it does? What if the one you are trying to fix is just a phantom made of memory and narrative? What if there is no solid self beneath the pain, beneath the triumphs, beneath the stories? What if you've spent your life looking for a center that was never there? And what if that's not a loss, but a liberation? What if the end of self is not an erasure, but a returning? Not to something, but to everything. To awareness itself. To the formless space before the story. The ego fears this. The mind resists it because it means the end of control. The end of being the one who's doing it right. The end of the one who survives, thrives, evolves. But in truth, you've never been the one driving any of it. The awareness has always been untouched. Silent, watching, waiting, not waiting for you to catch up. Not waiting for you to improve, just eternally available. Always here, the mind cannot grasp this. It will try to own it, categorize it, quote it, teach it. It will make it another milestone, another goal, another self-improvement target. But awareness is not a thing you gain. It's not something you get better at. It's not a state to maintain. It is what you are when the need to be someone stops. When the performance stops, when the narrative is no longer necessary, when even healing can rest. You don't need to transcend the human. You don't need to kill the ego. You only need to stop mistaking yourself for the one who suffers, the one who succeeds, the one who searches. That one was never the truth. That one was never the real. That one was just the dreamer inside the dream, forgetting that even the dream was being dreamed by something greater. And the truth is, there is no separate dreamer. There is only dreaming, only this. Only life appearing as you. Only love appearing as form. And the more you search, the more you miss it. Because it's not hidden. It's not distant. It's not beyond. It's what's looking through your eyes right now. It's the stillness behind the thoughts. It's the silence between the questions. It's the aliveness that has never been born, never been wounded, never been improved. You are never going to find yourself. Because you are not a self, you are not an object. You are not a point in space. You are not a conclusion. You are not the sum of your choices. You are not the story you've told or the one you've inherited. You are not the one who wakes up. You are what remains when the one who wakes up disappears. Not absence, but presence. Not a blankness, but fullness. Not identity, but being. You never needed to be anything else. You only needed to stop believing that you were ever something separate. You only needed to remember the part of you that was never a part at all. At first, it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like falling apart, like forgetting everything you once used to anchor yourself. The ground begins to move, not violently, but quietly, disturbingly. The thoughts you trusted begin to sound hollow. The roles you've played feel brittle in your hands. The emotions come, but they no longer prove anything. The story still repeats, but it no longer defines you. And without the structure of me, the scaffolding starts to crack. This is the collapse, not of your life, but of the one who is living it. You begin to notice how fragile your sense of self really was, how it depended on friction, on preference, on being right, on being understood, on being seen. You begin to see how often you were defending your identity, even in your silence. How even your stillness was often a strategy, even your surrender was a strategy, even your love, even your pain. You thought you were being authentic, but now you see how much of it was choreography, a dance to keep the eye intact. A script you didn't even know you were following. The performance becomes visible. Not so you can judge it, but so you can release it. Not all at once, slowly, in waves, not through force, but fatigue. You simply get tired of pretending. You get tired of editing your presence. You get tired of explaining who you are and why. You get tired of curating your meaning. You get tired of being someone. And that's when the unraveling begins. The stories don't stop, but you stop attaching. The thoughts still arise, but you no longer claim them. The feelings still surge, but they don't become your identity. You watch it all move through like weather. You no longer say, "This is me." You begin to say, "This is passing." And underneath what's passing, you discover what remains. You don't find peace by creating it. You find peace by letting go of the one who is trying to earn it. You don't find yourself by adding truth. You find it by subtracting everything false. You stop needing to be special, or healed, or ahead, or enlightened. You stop needing to be understood. You stop needing to be the one who figured it out. You stop needing to be a story worth telling. You simply become available, unnamed, undescribed, not less alive but more. Because without the need to protect or project a self, your energy returns, your attention returns, your presence returns. And with it, a kind of love that doesn't need an object. A kind of joy that has no cause. A kind of freedom that feels almost unbearable at first because there's no one left to hold it, no one left to claim it. You're not watching the sunset, you are the seeing. You're not feeling joy, you are the space in which joy arises. You're not holding peace, you are the silence that holds everything. But make no mistake, the ego will panic, not because it's evil, because it's scared. Its only job was to keep you alive as someone, and now that someone is disappearing, the personality doesn't want to be erased. The wounded child doesn't want to be abandoned. The identity you wore like a second skin doesn't want to be peeled away. Even your spiritual self will resist this. It will say you're regressing. It will say you're dissociating. It will say you're bypassing. It will beg you to anchor back into meaning, back into narrative, back into healing, back into something solid. And for a while, you might rebuild the old scaffolding just to feel steady again. You might try to define your awakening. You might try to make your collapse sound beautiful. You might try to put it into words that others can understand. But eventually, you'll grow tired of that too. Because even the most poetic identity is still a trap. Even the most conscious self is still a mask. You'll start to sense that you can't describe what's happening because it's not happening to anyone. There's no observer here, only observation. No knower, only knowing. No identity, only awareness undisturbed. At this point, grief may come, not just for what was lost, but for what was never real to begin with. Grief for all the years you spent trying to become someone. Grief for the love you tried to earn. Grief for the self-image you clung to, even when it hurt. Grief for the time spent circling a mirage. But even this grief is welcome. It's clean, pure. It doesn't belong to anyone. It moves through you like rain through sky. You start to feel how everything comes and goes, but not you. Not the you that can be named, but the you that is beyond naming. The one who has no story. The one who has no opposite. The one who can't be seen yet sees. The one who can't be held yet holds everything. You begin to taste a peace that doesn't require understanding. A peace that doesn't collapse when chaos arrives. A peace not of the mind, but of the unconditioned presence underneath it. There is nothing to explain anymore. There is no spiritual performance to maintain. No healing arc to prove. No insight to declare, just this, a quiet, resting beingness. Not apathetic. Not numb, radiant, empty, vast. And from this emptiness, a new kind of living begins. Not from intention, but from intuition. Not from identity, but from impulse. Not from who you think you are, but from what moves through when there is no one left to block it. You speak without trying to say something wise. You act without needing to appear kind. You love without needing to be worthy of it. You move like water, formless but full, alive, free, still human, still flawed, still tender but not defined by any of it. You let life live you, and in that letting, everything softens. Even the need to understand this softens. Even the need to hold on to this softens. You begin to see that even the collapse was just another dream, that nothing broke, nothing fell, nothing ended, only the idea of separation, only the idea of being someone, and now there is no one. Only this, only now. Only awareness, watching itself flicker through the eyes of the dream, smiling gently at the illusion it never needed to believe. It's strange at first to live without a center, to walk through the world no longer trying to be someone, no longer rehearsing yourself, no longer reaching for meaning, identity, validation. Life moves on. The sun still rises. People still call your name. You still have preferences, habits, relationships. But something fundamental has changed, not in the scenery, but in the seer. You are no longer the character in the story. You are the space in which the story appears. You are no longer trying to get somewhere because there's nowhere else to be. No deeper truth to claim, no final version of you to become. The chase has dissolved, the questions have quieted, the grip has loosened, and all that's left is this unshaped, unclaimed, indescribable presence. And it is enough, not because it satisfies the mind, but because the mind is no longer in charge. The narrator has gone quiet, the performance has ended, and in its place is a stillness so intimate, it feels like love, but not a love with direction. Not a love that moves toward or away, just a radiance, a softness, an openness that holds everything and needs nothing. This is not the absence of self, it is the fullness of being. Not the blank space the ego fears, but the pure aliveness that was here before the ego began describing life. You don't need to protect it. You don't need to explain it. You don't even need to sustain it. It is what remains when striving ceases. It is what breathes without permission, what watches without judgment, what loves without identity. It doesn't mean you float through life untouched. The waves still come, the world still stings. You still lose things. You still say the wrong words, forget the right ones. You still ache, you still laugh. You still get caught in the old grooves sometimes. But the difference is, you're no longer taking it personally, because there is no person to take it, just the movement of form within formlessness, just the weather passing through the sky. You are the sky, and this changes everything. Not because it fixes your life, but because it ends the illusion that life ever needed fixing. Not because it gives you a new identity, but because it dissolves the idea that you needed one. What's left isn't perfect. It's not tidy. It doesn't fit into categories. It doesn't sell well. It doesn't sparkle with certainty. It is raw, honest, quiet, and infinitely spacious. You live as a question now, not an answer. You live from listening, not from telling. You live from presence, not from persona. You meet the world not as someone, but as awareness itself, unguarded, undefined, unafraid to be nothing. This nothing is not emptiness. It is not nihilism. It is not disconnection. It is intimacy. It is truth. It is the home you were always circling, even when you didn't know you were lost. And now there's nowhere to arrive. There's only now, only breath, only this. And this is always enough. You no longer ask, who am I? Because the question no longer makes sense. You no longer look for yourself because there's nothing to find. You no longer carry the weight of becoming because you remember you never left. The trap wasn't in being someone. The trap was in believing that someone was you. The freedom isn't in discovering a better identity. The freedom is in remembering you were never the one behind the mask. You were the silence behind the voice, the stillness beneath the thought, the light before the mirror. And now you are free, not because you've arrived, but because you've stopped searching, you've stopped performing, you've stopped trying to hold together something that was never real. And in its absence, something holy remains. Not holy in a sacred, distant way, but holy because it is whole, complete, unnamed, undivided. You live now not to become, but to be. Not to conquer, improve, fix, or transcend, but to witness. To touch the world without needing it to prove who you are. To feel fully without collapsing into feeling. To speak without building an identity from your words. To love without needing to be loved back. To exist without needing to be explained. You don't need to defend anything anymore. Not your path, not your past, not your presence, not your peace. You are here, and that is enough. You don't need to be remembered. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to be right. You don't need to be wise. You don't need to be good. You don't need to be anything at all. Because what you are is beyond description, beyond approval, beyond identity. What you are is what was here before the story began, and what will remain when the story ends. The awareness, the spaciousness, the gentle witness, the vastness that needs no name. That's what you've always been. And now you remember. You don't need to hold it. You don't need to make it last. Just breathe. Let the moment arise and pass. Let the world do what it does. Let the mind speak if it wants to. Let the feelings come and go. Don't interfere. Don't chase. Don't analyze. Just notice. Just rest. Just be. That's it. That's all. That's everything.